Thank you, guys. I can see people popping in and out. Good to see some regulars on the webinar. Brilliant. It's good to see you, and good to see some new fresh people as well. I'm going to hand you over to the fantastic Clare. She's our hostess with a mostess today. I'm not going to attempt to say her first name because she keeps telling me off. But here we go, Clare. Over to you. I'm going to make you host here.
Oh, I have DEFCON. That means I think I can mute people, which is the most exciting bit of the job. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Clare Forestier. I'm your independent host, here to make sure that you are engaged and have a good time, which of course Tudor can do too, but he likes to have a professional in charge, and that's fine. We've got our usual good chats today. The actual one that we're really excited about at the moment is technology and how it can help the sales process. And also, how easy is it to adopt, and which bits of it are right for your business, and how to make it all work together beautifully. So we've got a really good bunch of people to help with that today. First of all, we're going to be speaking to Rachael Howourth, who is the founder and director of Momentum Southwest. She and her team basically deliver business coaching and strategies to SMEs across the region. And so obviously she will see businesses doing this all the time. I'm trying to get everybody's party trick from today. Rachael's is that she can say the alphabet backwards in 10 seconds. So if you hang around to the end of the webinar, you might be able to see that. She said she normally gets free drinks as a result of this party trick. But I'm really sorry we can't help you with that today, Rachael. But after lockdown, next week, whenever is it? Next week? It is next week. We can do that. So our next guest is Kenda MacDonald, and she's the founder of Automation Ninjas, which is a behavioural marketing agency. And she's also a best-selling author. Her book is called Hack the Buyer Brain. And as a result of that book, I'm sure that is why she's also an international public speaker. And her party trick, or it's not her party trick, but her special secret is that she's a doting cat mum. And I'm kind of with you there. I didn't used to be liking cats, but we've got a kitten now, so I'm beginning to see the cat allure. And Joe Stallion is the co-founder and director of Solvi Solutions. Give us a wave, Joe. And he's a consultant helping businesses to use the data that they have. And on his secret fact is he is a very keen triathlete. So I'm not sure if that makes him the only sporting member of this panel, but I certainly couldn't claim to do anything like that. And we're also joined today by James, and he's the CEO of SpiderGroup, who very kindly sponsored today's webinar. James has been in the Bristol tech scene since he started SpiderGroup over 18 years ago, so he knows what he's doing. And the business works with companies across digital transformation and digital marketing. So again, the perfect person to be talking to today. And he essentially helps businesses meet their goals through technology and all those sales and enablement tech that we're going to be talking about today. James is a Liverpool fan, so he's very happy today. And he also is a chemist and can blow things up. That is his secret trick. He's going to be running a workshop for us now about how to use video in the sales process and how it can get really big results. We're going to hand over to James for about half an hour, and then we'll all come back and have a conversation about sales technology. So James, please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. I'm going to do is I'm just going to set a timer, otherwise I might outstay my welcome. Okay, so thank you very much. So I'm just going to share my screen. So what I've done is I've put together a few sort of slides to give us a bit of a, I guess, a background into some different technologies that you might want to consider, and sort of explain why this is relevant. So the topic is around video in sales. But again, like I said, I'll just sort of explain why it's relevant. So what I've done is I've put some stats on the screen, and I'm going to explain where some of these come from. So the 39% is that only 39% of salespeople are actually intended to go into sales. I think there's a lot of people that kind of end up in it somewhat because they sort of fall into it, but actually they wouldn't necessarily call themselves salespeople. There's an argument to be made that anyone that's running a business or in business is a salesperson in some form or other. So 18 is that on average it takes 18 calls to actually connect with a buyer, which is actually a huge amount of effort to do that. And so one of the questions we would ask ourselves is, well, what can we do to shortcut that? 35% is that actually if you use collaboration words such as we instead of I, you'll increase your sales success rate by 35%. which is obviously, you know, quite astonishing. Well, I suspect Kenda might have some thoughts on that as well. So, okay, what next? Let's go. Okay, so 70% is 70% of business-to-business buyers watch a video at some point during their buying process. So the question then is, how do we use that to our advantage? 24% is only 24% of sales emails are actually opened. So what can we do about that? How do we know what's going on with that? And the 7 is that the companies that reached out to leads that they got within an hour of the lead sort of being there, they were 7 times more likely to have a meaning conversation with a decision maker. So being present when people are actually looking and actually wanting to engage with you is really important. So that's just a little bit of background. The other bit that I thought and was really fascinating, so I looked into this again, was that what actual salespeople do. And the challenge is that most of the time salespeople aren't really doing, I guess, the money-making bit. So they're only spending 31% of their time talking to prospects. And so as you can see on there, there's a lot of time wasted on doing other stuff. And certainly we understand this because we manage time well in our organization, and we actually understand what's going on. And actually all the things that we're trying to do, certainly with technology, is how do we get our people spending more time actually communicating with prospects rather than doing all the background and all the other bits that go with it. And so there's a load around sort of training, and I'm sure other panelists will sort of talk about that and actually sort of strategies. But in my view, technology can play a pretty big part in that. So some technologies that people might want to use, I'm just going to put another slide up. So I guess a little bit of a, we have a slight bias that we're a HubSpot partner. So some of the bits in here are around what HubSpot can do. That in very BBC fashion, there are other technologies that can do this as well. So the bits that I've got on the screen here are really powerful. So actually knowing when someone has actually opened your email, and one of the things that you could do, so you can know someone's opened your email, and you sort of, so the bit that's at the top over here, let me just do that. So the bit over the top here is actually from a Google Chrome plugin. So you can actually see when someone has just opened your email. So if you pick up the phone at that point and you can say, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to follow up, see what you thought of my email proposal, whatever I sent. And they're going to go, oh, wow, that's really weird. I was just looking at that. Oh, let's have a chat. And so what you're doing is you're working out how to kind of, I mean, ultimately, when you're communicating with people, you're interrupting them. So what you're doing is you're trying to work out, how do I communicate with them at a time when actually you're not kind of interrupting them because they're already in that headspace. So that's really useful. Click notifications are really useful as well. So you can see if they click on a link to, for instance, book a meeting to your calendar, or if you send them a quote, or if there's other sort of interaction, maybe you send them a link to a blog article or a video, then if you can see they've clicked something 3 or 4 times, that gives you some insight that actually they're much warmer than someone that's clicked it once, because they've come back to it a few times. So you can then focus more of your time on I guess, reaching out to those people. Email templates and sequences are massive. Anyone that's not using sequences in their outreach is possibly wasting time and effort, and sort of using sequences is important. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a demo of how to use the video technology. And so you'll see how we would then integrate that with the sequence. So booking time into someone's calendar is also really useful. So we always think of this as a micro commitment. So if you talk to someone and, well, sorry, if you send them an email or send them a video, I'll show you in a minute, then if you have a link in your email which allows them to book time in your calendar, what you're actually making happen is you're making them, there's a micro commitment there. And all these micro commitments add up to being, powerful, which obviously then you would need it to integrate into your calendar. So Office 365 with Gmail integration is really important. But also actually when you are in your native Gmail Office 365, being able to access a load of the templates and sequences and video and whatever. Again, this is technology working together to make life much simpler for you. When I say video integration, what I'm really talking about is sending video in the body of an email. And whilst it's not actually quite in the body, you have to click a link to get to it. It's quite visual that there's something that's animated that's actually leading them to take more action. Zoom integration is massive. Certainly during lockdown, when anyone books a meeting into the calendar, if it automatically creates a Zoom meeting in there as well, it means that you're getting away from spending all that time on administration. So all of these obviously are kind of going back to the slide before. If you're spending time on doing admin and doing like so one of the things we call it is income generating tasks. So these are tasks that need to be done, but they're not really directly generating your income. They're becoming the precursors. So if you can automate that, then that should make life more productive for you. Another one that I kind of put in at the end is a system that we use called Seamless. Again, there's other ones that are out there, but Seamless is a really interesting way of doing prospecting. And what I'll do is there's a blog post that I've done with a video in it, which shows you how to use Seamless to optimize your prospecting process. Obviously, we've played around with lots of technologies to figure out what will work best for us, and this is a bit of a mix that we find works well. Okay, so as an organization, we've kind of decided that that we want to be video first now. So we want to do as much as we can with video, whether that is doing our outreach, whether that's doing our sort of discovery calls or connect calls, as we call them, which is sort of earlier on in our sales process, or whether it's actually if someone's not available for doing a proposal sort of pitch call, then what we'll do is we'll then use video to kind of demonstrate to them what's on it, what's going on in the proposal, rather than just sending them a PDF or a PowerPoint or whatever. We'll actually talk them through it so that we can build context into what we're doing. So video is really interesting. Back in sort of 2003, we all had sort of Skype and we had lots of great sort of video capabilities, but it kind of was the preserve of geeks and people that wanted to talk to their relatives in Australia that didn't want to pay, big international charges. Whereas actually, obviously, with everything that's been going on in sort of the macro and in society, like everybody's using video now. I can't think of the last time I called someone and did an audio only call. Everything that we're doing now is video, and yeah, we are trying to be video first. But even like my friends in the social environment, I just pick up the phone and I call them, because actually video is now finally fulfilling the promise that it's had for a long time. So I remember when the iPhone was released and then sort of FaceTime was, sort of came out in the in the 3G version. Everyone was like, amazing, we can use video, we've got FaceTime, it's brilliant. Nobody used it because it just wasn't overly relevant, because people just didn't really get it. And people ultimately were a bit shy. I mean, the biggest barrier to entry in our view is that people just feel self-conscious. But actually, with everything that's going on, the fact we're all on Zoom now and there's video all over the place now, it kind of makes people feel much more comfortable. Still a little bit of a barrier to get over, and that's something that that we can help with. But actually, it's I think it's hit the big time now, should we say? So a lot of people think video in sales is just, well, is that Zoom or Teams or GoToMeeting or whatever? And no, it's not. So it's using video throughout your sales process. Ultimately, it's much more time efficient, and it has much more engagement, and it really delivers, I guess, a much better value for you as an organization using it to communicate with your prospects and your customers. So, so the next question then is, well, how do we do it? And so the idea really of using video is that, as with any sort of communications, you want to avoid being impersonal. So how do you approach someone in a nice, personalized way? Ultimately, you are still interrupting someone, even if you're sending them a video or whatever. So you still need to make it of value to them, because you are actually asking for their time. And the interesting thing as well, and one of the things that would be interesting, I don't know if Tudor could do a poll, I'd be really fascinated to know how many people are using video at any stage in their sales process at the moment. Or is it something that they haven't really got up to yet? So we are still seeing it as quite a novelty, but then as with any sort of marketing, tactic or strategy, if you stand out, then that's part of the battle really. So if people get things in the post now, it's, oh, I've not had a letter in the post for a long time. So actually, it can be somewhat cyclic, but actually video at the moment is really standing out and having a big impact. But the question with video, though, is that, like, if you have a load of people's contacts and you can then put them in your CRM, and then you can then stick them in a sequence for engagement, you know, you've got your, I don't know, you've got your email, phone, and then like how you're doing your various engagement. How do you use video at scale while still making it personal? And that kind of is the challenge, and that's kind of where sort of technology steps in to help. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to show one that we have done. I'm going to show this one. Actually, I'm just going to make sure. 2 seconds. I'm just going to reshare my screen and make sure I'm showing my computer sound as well. Just give me a second. So hopefully that's done. So I'm just going to play this and then you see.
Hi John, this is James from SpiderGroup. I'm just sending you a video email. These are quite new. I would have thought you probably haven't had one of these before. Not many people have. So these are a new way of reaching out to people that you want to speak to, because as you saw, I waved and it gives a little bit of interest and people then want to engage. So let me get to it. So the reason that I am sending you this video email is that we help managing directors of businesses that I guess work in more construction and sort of manufacturing and engineering, and we help them understand how to invest money from marketing and sales perspective to generate leads and ultimately to generate more customers. Our main aim is to help you understand how spending £1,000 will generate you, say £4,000 or £5,000 or whatever the ratio happens to be. So as a business, you know you've got a repeatable process to allow you to grow and to achieve whatever goals you have. Not everyone has those goals, but if you do have those goals and you would like to grow the business, and in a world where so much of what we do starts online, it'd be great to have a chat with you and see if there's any ways we can help. Just as a bit of an aside, when I was looking at your website, I noticed there's a bit where it says not secure. From Google's perspective, this is a bit of a negative because it means that, that anyone that's interacting with it, like the communication is not secure. So if you were to fix that, which can just be changing your hosting, would mean that Google would look upon you more favorably. Anyway, that's it for me. Would love to have a chat. Just send me a reply in the email and hopefully we can have a quick 15-minute call in the next week or two. Speak to you soon. Cheers, take care. Bye.
Okay, so that's an example of...
I didn't get that.
Oh, thanks, Alexa. that's an example of how we would do outreaches. So that's a real one. He actually emailed me back and booked an appointment, and we had a good chat with him. We didn't actually work with him because their issue was not getting leads. Their issue was making stuff more profitable because they don't have enough members of staff to actually deliver all the work they've got. So a slightly different challenge. So that's how we use it. So as I said, what we're trying to do is to avoid the impersonal. So I used him by name. I had his website in the background, and I was able to engage with him. So as I said, something to grab their attention is really important. So a bit of a wave, relatable to him, had a call to action as part of it. So one of the things I did is I gave him some information of value towards the end. So I said to him, obviously, that his website was insecure. And so what I'm doing is I'm showing myself to be a bit of a, I guess, thought leader or giving some credibility. And that's ultimately what I think would have brought him towards me. So the idea is you're looking for 60 seconds to 90 seconds. And the idea, obviously, for that is to then get some engagement and to make them sort of want to speak to you and reach out to you. So the question then is, so how do you actually do it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change back to Chrome again. And what I thought I'd do is I picked on Kenda, apologies for that. And I was just going to show how you would do it and how simple it is. So one of the tools that we use is a tool called Vidyard. And one of the beauties of that, so you'll see that I've had to plug in another webcam with a different angle because my webcam's locked in Zoom at the moment. So, so Vidyard's actually a free tool. You can sign up for the personal edition for free. So everyone can go and do this straight away. There are other tools that do this, but it means that you can very quickly, just jump on this. So You get the Chrome plugin for it, and then it then sits inside your browser. And so if I want to then speak to Kenda, I'm going to go to screen on this occasion, so the whole screen. I'm going to click record. I'm going to tell it to share this screen number 2. And then it gives me a countdown, and then I do a bit of a wave. Hi, Kenda, how you doing? It was great to meet you on the Sales Edge that we did. It'd be really lovely to have a one-to-one and find a little bit more about you. My colleague Natalie has seen you speak, and has got your book and thinks that you're amazing. And I'd love to meet you myself, and that's a proper chat. There's a link in the bottom of this email. If you click that, then you can book some time directly in my calendar. Once again, yeah, lovely to meet you today, and it'd be great to have a chat. So obviously a little bit of a canned example. I actually would love to have a one-to-one Kenda. And so what you then see, it then pops up directly inside Vidyard. What I can do is I can then do a title, would love a one-to-one, so you're then personalizing it again. And the thing that's generated as well, it's generated a thumbnail here. So it's got some kind of animation in it. So what I can actually do from here, if I want, I can share. So if you're connected with someone, say on LinkedIn or Facebook, or whatever, I could just share this directly in here. So if I go onto here, I'm going to share in there, private message. I can then, when it loads, send privately. So I can then type Kenda. Actually, I don't know if we're, okay, so I can then put there, I can send you a video directly inside there. And one of the beauties is, because it's an external system, I can see when Kenda views that message. And if you happen to opt for a more premium version, you can then see how many times they've watched it, how much of it, and then you can see the bits that they've spent more time on, and you get a lot more analytics to know what's going on. Data is really powerful in sales. Or what I could do is I can go to here. I can, if I want to, so this is one of the marketing automation systems. I can get a sequence. I can select that, which is one of the sequences we use. I can get rid of this is video. I can then insert a video directly into it. I can choose that one. I pop that in there, and then you can then still see that we get the animation that will be on the sequence, but you get an animation that will drop into your email. You can see I just made a test one, so it just says testing.com. And then I've got my whole sequence, which then says after a certain number of days, you call them. There's another automated email. Have you seen my video? And then you've got that whole sort of, you're automating your pipeline building processes. And you can then obviously get all the analytics from that lets you know how you're getting on all this. So that's kind of how we'd use that. Another way of doing it could be, so if I just go to here, I'm just going to go into there. The joy of security and two-factor. I'm going to jump in here, and then I can go and very quickly create a message. And then again, I can then just drop that same video in here, and I've got it in my Outlook. So if I prefer to do it in that environment, you've got the exact same plugin that works for Gmail and for the G Suite. So it's all in there basically. So you can then just insert that. So that's really quick and powerful. And then again, you get that sort of, when it sends, you get that animation that goes with it, which is really useful. So I just thought, having done that, I'd talk a little bit about like the pitfalls of it. Like a lot of people worry about video, and they kind of go, oh, if I'm sending out a video, I need it to be perfect. I don't want to look like an idiot on video. And one thing I would say is that humanizing it is massively important. And actually, so some of the people that we talk to that do this a lot, they actually put in a false fumble so that it makes them feel more human. So one of the things that I don't know if you heard it, but we're talking about beforehand, is that whilst you might, in this example, be doing business to business, what you're really doing is you're doing human to human sales. So you're using the video as a way of getting that human outreach across. And so actually being very human about how you do it is important. The other thing as well is depending on the behavioral style of the person. So we use a technique called DISC, which looks at the 4 kind of like, I guess, behavioral styles. So for instance, the D profile is very task orientated and it's very fast. You would want a much shorter video for them. And there's an application, like a plugin we use for that called Crystal Knows, that you can look at someone on LinkedIn, you hit go, and it will tell you what behavioral style they are. If they happen to be C, which is compliant on the behavioral style, you could talk a lot more about detail. So we find that by doing video outreach, we get over 50% more engagement for our emails. We find actually it delivers a return on investment of like 60%. Then actually you're going to like appeal to them much more. So again, you can use technology to get a bit of an insight. Obviously, if they've had their profile written for them, or they're writing it in the image they want to present, so they're a CEO or a commercial director or a sales director, they might write it in a style that makes them look the part. So it's not as accurate as taking a bit of writing that someone's written. But actually, it's amazing what the AI can do in the background to work out what kind of behavioral style they are. And that's really important. So for some, you don't want to ramble. For others, you want to go into a lot of detail. But ultimately, the biggest pitfall of them all is not doing it. I saw a quote the other day, and it was, I miss 100% of the shots I don't take. And that was a golfer. And that's the same thing. Like, just get on with it, do it. The first 10, 15 will be horrible, send them anyway. When you get to about 50, you get into a groove, you get into a flow. And actually, so we reckon that you can do 10 vid yards an hour. So once you've done all your prospecting using something like Seamless, that's got all the sort of the target market you're looking for, automatically pushed into your CRM using their integration. You can then just go through, you can quickly jump to Sales Navigator, you can look at the profile, and so you can do, like I say, about 10 an hour, and actually that's quite efficient. What I would say is that so let's say you've got a target database of, I don't know, 2,000, you would definitely want to target your top 100 first. Maybe do the middle, maybe do 15 from the middle to start with, where you're getting your confidence up, and then you then progress on to then like really your high profile targets. You would really want to be targeting with video, because you'll get much higher engagement, get a lot more people then on the phone or in the Zoom sort of chatting to you. The other one that we also use, that we're going to demonstrate, is using videos in proposals. So I've got another quick example of that. So my colleague Jeremy did this one. This is a dummy one because we didn't want to like do a proper proposal, so I'm just going to show this.
Hi there, John. Good afternoon. It's Jeremy here from SpiderGroup. Hope that you are well. Thank you very much for your time today. It was really great to chat to you and get a bit of a feel for where you're up to and where the gaps are and how we can help. The insights you provided have been absolutely invaluable in allowing us to form this proposal, which I'm just going to give you a bit of a run through with and what the desire. A bit of an overview of what our assessment of where you are at the moment, why it is that you're talking to us, and what the importance of us moving forward will be. And this is us actually relaying back your goals, challenges, and your plans as discussed. So this is looking at where you are now, where you want to. Essentially, the number crunching parts. Now we've actually had a look through your AdWords accounts and your LinkedIn accounts. Include some client examples as well. So essentially, think of these as anonymous testimonials of, as you're aware.
The really powerful things is if you find the video is really working for you, and you do go for one of the more premium options, which could be a couple of £100 a month or something like that. If you're sending out proposal documents like that, you can see really the bit that they spend time in. So you end up getting a heat map of the timeline of where they're actually spending time. So one of the things I would always say, so we would never just send over a proposal anymore for what's a complex sale. If you're selling a widget that's £100, then fine, just send over pricing and maybe a document that explains it with maybe more of a canned video that talks to them about the benefits. But as soon as you've got a complex sale, consider purchase that is of high enough value, 100% do video and use that as part of it. Another bit that we use video for as well is for when people call in and like have questions about stuff. So if someone said, well, can you explain to me the nuances of how this works? And you find, so as I mentioned, like the behavioral styles, C will want loads of information. Sometimes the prospect of writing an email back, which has got like 10 bullet points explaining all the stuff they are asking, you can just like have their email on the screen. You can talk to their points, show them how you solve the problems that or the questions they're asking. It's a really great way to kind of to manage that process in a way that then. So if you do a Zoom, you only have that moment, and if they didn't remember it, then they've got nothing to come back to. Whereas if you use something like a Vidyard or a Loom or whatever it happens to be, then you actually then have the ability for them to keep going back to it, and actually then you can use your videos as also they can use your videos to sell to their internal team if they've got to do that, and that's also very powerful. So that's the end. Clocking in at 26 minutes. One of the things we were offering everybody is like a half an hour as a bit of a training boot camp. If you want to use video and you're not sure how, we will send us some of your videos, or we'll have a bit of a half an hour on Zoom and we can run through and help get you set up, and all the bits that you might want to have a go on. So thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, James. That was amazing. The chat was going nuts. Everyone was really excited by that. I think everyone's going to take you up on that half an hour. So better get busy blocking out some time on your diary before we all jump in there. That was so interesting, and there's lots of questions that have come out of it as well. I have my own, but I'll go into everybody else's first. So it's the concept of, does your organization help people make these for others, or you're just going to show us how to do them? It's not part of your tech, is it?
Sorry, so we're partners with people that have this tech.
Right.
So you're using other people's stuff, but part of our thing is we can show you how to use it and get the most from it. Obviously, like, there's lots of other people on here that will be able to talk to you about how, what message you should be using and all that kind of stuff. So we've worked out a way that works for us. For your particular industry, it might be slightly different. But yeah, so we're early adopters, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to sort of figure out what's new and what's coming over the horizon. And yeah, for me, video is massive, or it's going to be massive, even if it's not yet.
And presumably it's really quick to integrate it into your systems. You can be up and doing it in no time.
What I just showed you, that like the setup process is about 10 minutes. You go onto video.com, you sign up for a free account, you install the plugin in Chrome or Edge or whatever you want, and pretty much away you go. You just do your video and you then pop it in email and it's done. And
I think at the moment, isn't it, it's going to come a point when it's not going to be that cutting edge anymore, and people aren't necessarily going to open all their videos, but right now it really is. This is the time to be doing it, isn't it?
100%. It's the same with everything. As soon as everyone's doing it, so like email marketing was massive for a while because no one was doing it. Now we get so much email, there's a constant battle of getting rid of that. Mm-hmm. Video is there at the moment and it's new and people don't expect it, and you stand out. In a year and a half, 2 years, it will probably become passé and it won't be that important. And we'll have to come up with a new cutting edge thing that then attracts attention. And that's the chat. I guess that's the bit that we love, is trying to figure out what the next thing is. But right now, video is cool.
Yeah, because there's an element, I think we were all a bit shocked that Kenda was going, wow, it's like, how quick is that? And kind of how scary. And of course, we instantly are a little bit flattered. So we go, okay, they've bothered, they've thought of me. And so we go for it. So it's like, how long are we not going to be cynical about it? So yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, the next big thing, according to Rachael, is virtual reality. It's just big. Then they really will appear in your room, won't they? Your salespeople will appear as a some kind of hologram in your bedroom, which is quite terrifying. Thank you. Oh, that's so interesting, James. And there's been such great response from everybody on that. I think it might be worth getting everybody else back in now. So I think we're still missing Joe. Do you want to turn your camera on again, Joe, and we'll start having the chat so everybody can get involved.
Says my camera's on this end.
Oh, it might just be me having the wrong screen there. Oh yeah, there you go. No, it's not. You're not on. Yes, now you are. Now you are. Brilliant. I could see Tudor, but not you. So we kind of talked about it there. There's so many new technologies, and this one's the new one that you were showing us, which is really exciting. And we've got a good 2 years of hopefully using it before it becomes obsolete or passé. How do we keep on top of it all? And how do we kind of know what's best for us? Because we're all going, yes, let's go for that. But we have to kind of stop and go, is it going to work in our businesses? Are the staff going to get into it? That kind of thing. What's the kind of best way to keep ahead of that? I'm not sure who that's the best question for. Maybe that is for you, James.
Okay, so how do we get people fully involved?
Well, how do we know it's right? Yeah.
So there's an interesting thing. A lot of the time we would suggest that you have a champion and get someone, spend a lot of time with them, getting them involved. And then when they start to see great results, everybody else goes, oh, what are you doing to get great results? And then everyone then gets on board and wants to do it. So my colleague Jeremy, who's on here, he was very skeptical about using the video, not when he was with us, but the previous role he was in. And so but when he started using it and people started doing it and responding and whatever, he was just a complete convert. I mean, ultimately though, it's having a process and having reporting around it. So we actually specifically in our CRM, when people do vidyards, they mark it as a call. It's a type vidyard, and therefore we can see how many, and then we can see, for instance, on the sequences that we do vidyards on, we get a much higher engagement. And I mean, ultimately, from a sales perspective, people want results. They want to achieve their targets. They want to get their commission. And if you can demonstrate to them how they do that, and it's simple and easy to use. So it's all about friction anywhere in an organization. If you can reduce the friction to making a sale, and you can reduce the friction to a salesperson making a sale, then they will want to do it. And so it's making it easy and making it empowering for them.
Yeah, it's interesting because Rachel, how with people managing teams, and I'm sure some offices or some teams you work with will be like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. How do you kind of get that buy-in on them?
Yeah, I think I can imagine a salesperson going for maybe a job interview in a new firm, and when they hear that new firm is using video outreach, that might scare the life out of some people. So it adds a whole new element to the induction, because you've then not only got to teach people how to, do the typical prospect, but you've then got to encourage them to be prepared to be on video. And I think a lot of people are still nervous about being on video, but that's good, because those of us who aren't can get ahead.
It's true. And I suppose going back to the question I kind of asked you about 10 in 1 there, that was a bit difficult, but that idea of how do we keep on top of all the new stuff that's coming in, because there's so much of it and we all get excited and we're all sharing, we go, try this, try that, and it's all very shiny and there's loads of it coming at us all the time. How do we isolate what's going to work for us? What are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves? I might go to you with that one, Joe, because I know you go into companies and they're using all kinds of stuff that might not be relevant, or it's almost too much. How do you make sense of that whole crazy mouse shiny place?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, really, because we go into organizations and we always ask the question, no matter what piece of technology is, and it is, why using this, what's the reason for it being here? And often some of our responses are completely valid, but in other times it almost just seems like we saw someone do it and it appeared like it was the right thing at the time. And what we've kind of had to do is go on and really ask some quite kind of critical questions about its true impact in the business itself. So I think before employing any kind of new technology, it's important to understand whether it's going to work for you. And I think, as James said, a great idea is to go kind of and do that pilot trial with one person to also kind of bring it into the organization, but just gauge its effects as well.
I think with something like that, that's just, literally one person starts doing video. It's as simple as that. It's quite a nice, easy one to test. Some of the other tech out there is a bit more of an investment and is only going to work if everybody is using it properly. If it's just one person, it won't work. Some of the CRM systems and all the different things that they do. So, we were talking before the event, and I was talking to other people about the questions people were going to say. We was like, what's the quick bit of prospecting technology that we can use immediately and start to see ROI? So possibly the one that James has just shown us, but can you think of any others out there that would be a quick win for people to be using? I'll ask that to James again, and then I'll probably, yeah. So
one of the ones that we use is one called Seamless. So I just want to point out, we've got no shares in any of these. So I have done a blog article. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting, so seamless.ai, so one of the things that's really interesting about that is that, so LinkedIn Navigator is also really powerful. So you go in there, you choose, the demographics, all the bits that you want around the people, size organization, whatever. And then what you end up with is you then get a list of them as you would in Sales Navigator. And the brilliant bit is, so it's a Chrome extension, and so you add it onto your browser, and then what you can then do is you can then say find these people, and it then goes and grabs all their profiles, puts their data in, puts it into Seamless, and then Seamless uses their AI and then looks across the internet and works out if it's found anyone from that organization that's got an email address that's publicly available. And then it will say, okay, so it's first name dot surname, or first name surname, or first initial and surname, or whatever. And then from that, it can work out what it thinks the email address is. and then it then goes away, speaks to their mail system, and then it then can give you an email address. So not all the time, probably 70-75% of the time. And then sometimes it can find like a public phone number as well. So this one doesn't do any mobile phone numbers. There are others that do that. I'm not sure quite how I feel about that. If someone's calling my mobile, I don't know how. Well, it has happened. I know how I respond. It's like, where did you get my number from? Because that's also my personal mobile. But then from that, you can then push that directly into the CRM you're using. And so rather than spending, I don't know, an hour a day finding prospects, you can spend an hour and you can then load 300-400 into your CRM in one go. And it's just that efficiency you get that, and then you can then like do video, whack them in a sequence, or do a video for the top prospect, and it just makes it so much quicker.
So I'm going to come to you now, Kenda, because you're the automation ninja. So your goal of life, you know, is to make everybody's lives easier by automating a lot of the processes. And obviously that's what James is talking about. But then you were the person who was targeted there, you know, with the email and the LinkedIn video and the, so it is, and then James has just mentioned that bit. Some of it's a bit creepy, isn't it? So is it no holds barred on what we can do as long as we're automating and saving ourselves time?
So my background's in forensic psychology, and part of that is behavioral economics is what I've really got into since then. And what we always try and think about is what the ethical consideration is of some of the things that we're doing as salespeople and as marketing people, because we track a lot of stuff, we track people, and we also, particularly the more you get into the psychology, you have the capability to affect people's decision making, and not necessarily in a good way. And there are some pretty heavy ethical considerations that you have to have. So what we always try and do is, first of all, we don't work with companies that aren't very nice, because we don't want to give them superpowers. But the other thing that we like to say to people is, you need to think about why you're doing this. Why are you tracking this information? What are you going to do with this? Is it actually going to be helpful? And is it actually going to help the sales process? Is it going to help the end user? So we tend to go down that route of being really clear about why we're doing what we're doing. And very often when you get clear on why you're doing what you're doing, you realize that you don't need a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the tech is actually, it becomes like a case of maybe using 3 or 4 things to do something. And then some of the bits are manual in between, and that's okay. You don't have to automate everything within the nth degree. Sometimes being a ninja at the automation is realizing that you need a human in between some of the automated bits. So we don't go for the whole 100% thing. We like having some human interpretation in there, and also being really clear on why we are doing what we're doing, because then it becomes easier to choose the tech around it.
Oh, someone's in the background there. I think that's really interesting as well, because other conversations I've been having with people and other host events, it's like that debate between the robot and the human. We still need the human to do those, to make those correct moral decisions, to be principled, to have the proper relationship with the client.
To analyze the data. The output that you get doesn't necessarily give you context around it. So you still need someone to have a look at the data and go, oh, okay, now I know what to do. It's the human element is still there, and our creativity will still be required. Your automation should be there to leverage your process and to make it more efficient and stop you from wasting time, but not to take your job away. It's to make your job easier to do so that you can be more effective.
I guess that's the message, isn't it, for people like for you, Rachel, when you're saying some people don't want to do video. It is going to make your life easier, your job better, everything more fun and easy. That's going to be the selling point, isn't it, to people? It is, though, I suppose, the hardest thing is we talk about this with tech before, is that making everybody go along with it and it work really, if it's only going to work as it's something for you to invest in, because obviously you can get on, Vidyard cheaply, but if you're going to do it at scale for your whole company, it's going to be an investment that you have to justify, and it is only going to work if everyone does it. So what's the way forward? How do you get all your culture to buy into it? Because at every level, as we try and transform inside businesses, people are resistant to that change and to doing things differently. And we were talking when we were planning this, Tudor and I, about organizations where salespeople don't want to share their tips and their stuff, so the CRM doesn't work and all the rest of it. How do you change all those things with people? I think James and Rachel, this is a question for you, Rachel.
When as a sales leader, business owner, when you're trying to build a high performance culture, the worst thing you can try to do is try to make everybody do the same thing, because everybody's got different strengths and different ideas and different ways of going about things. And a good leader will know that you need to leverage those things. And so where video might work really well for one person, it might not work so well for somebody else. And as a sales leader, you want to give everybody the tools to be as effective as possible. But if you try to bash people over the head and force them to do it, then actually they might go the other way. And you know, I'm a big fan of technologies like this, but at the end of the day, if it was as simple as everybody just doing a video, then we would all be 100% effective at closing our sales, but we're not. So with all the salespeople I've ever managed, I've never met one who's 100% effective at closing their sales. It just doesn't exist. So all you can look to do is be as effective as possible and measure the right things. And as I've said, you know, on these events before, it's never about measuring the revenue. It's always about the other three big KPIs in sales, which are activity, conversion, and average order value. Never about the output, only about the input. And so video and all the other great, you know, automations and things that people can do is about helping salespeople to grow the activity and improve their conversion. And if you do those two things well, revenue will be the outcome. So yeah.
Joe, when you going into organisations and consulting with them about how to get the best data and how to use it most effectively, how do you see them handling that issue?
Yeah, so it's always been a challenge, really, and I think just kind of getting that buy-in is always going to be difficult. And I think for things that require the buy-in from the whole team, within larger organizations, obviously it's more difficult. But for kind of smaller, quick fix technologies that you can just implement into your business, like we've just seen with Vidyard, I think for things like that, it should almost be put forward as a tool that can empower salespeople to make those right, you know, decisions, instead of it being something, as Rachael said, that they are completely forced into doing. And on the back of that, the data that you can receive from those video clips and the engagement that you've got from them, I think it's really important that the teams are fully educated on how to do that, because a big part of it is just not understanding on how to use the data that you have.
Right, I muted myself. Apologies, I muted myself there. So if you had to give, you know, somebody a bit of advice now, you know, they're going to invest in sales technology, what's the key thing they have to think about? You know, what's the main thing that they should be doing when they start to make these decisions? Can I come to you, Kenda?
Oh gosh, okay. Yeah, so I think the key thing is to get really clear on what it is you're actually trying to achieve. You can't, I see people all the time go, oh, I'm going to get HubSpot, or oh, I'm going to get this CRM, or I'm going to get that CRM. And they do it because everyone else is doing it. And it seems like a great thing to do. They don't actually sit down and go, what are our processes? What are we trying to do? What's going to work really well for us? So if you can get really clear on that, the technology becomes really clear, and it might be that HubSpot is the perfect thing for you, and it might be that this is the perfect thing for you. But if you don't know what you actually want, it's impossible to decide that, and you could make a very expensive mistake. It might take you, you know, a couple of days to sit down with your whole team and figure that out. But once you've done that, you would then at least know that you're doing the very best thing for your business. And if you then approach an expert or a consultant to help you, you can give them the information to get the best out of that relationship too. So get really clear on what it is you're trying to achieve, and then you've got a good foundation to start from.
It's a very valid point, because all this stuff is advertised and there, and you just have to sign on really, really quickly. And it's like everything else. If you're going to make an investment, you've got to go to another level of consultancy before you purchase that, haven't you? Which is obviously what you guys do. Because I'm sure, you know, I know Joe was saying to me, people have bought all sorts of stuff when you go in and work with them. And it's like, how do you integrate all that and make it all work when people have made some big decisions? And, you know, it goes back to the whole experience of computers and tech, and in large organizations where they have this enormous load of, what do they call it? Not legendary tech, but historic stuff that they're stuck with. So making huge transformations are impossible. So yeah, that's really good advice. So it is go to an expert almost. Don't just buy everything you see.
So can I So one of the things that, so there's a really great book that I read a long time ago called Necessary But Not Sufficient, which talks about how technology is necessary for every business, whether it's sales or whether it's whatever. Yeah. But in its own right, it's absolutely not sufficient. Eli Godrat. It's quite an old book now, and one of the earlier ones was the goal. So what's the goal of the business? And then he's then adapted it to make it relevant for technology. And yeah, so I think as Rachel was saying, it's all about the inputs. Like sales and like revenue is an output KPI, but it's all about how do you figure out what your inputs are and how do you enhance every input to then get the output that you want.
Couldn't agree more. That you see behind me, like a big whiteboard, I completely agree with Kenda. You've got to map it all out, and if you don't know how to do that, get somebody in who does, because it's the most common thing in the world. Like businesses will say to us, oh, you have a look at our CRM for us and help us figure it out. And I'll say, first question, do you have data in it or not? And they'll say, oh yeah, we've been using it for about 6 months. And like, you've now got to unpick all of that, because if you only mapped it out in the first place and really thought about your sales pipeline and your process, your ideal customer journey, you got the language right, then you could configure that CRM to make it look and feel like your brand, to reflect your culture, to reflect your sales language. But people tend to just go, oh yeah, I'll buy that. Oh, there's a free version, brilliantly. Oh yeah, I've only got to chuck in a CSV file, brilliant. And then they do it and then spend a few months having absolute headaches. And then they call out for an expert who's got to strip it all back out again and start from the beginning.
So it doesn't only then cost you the money of actually buying the software, implementing it into your business, all that time, it then costs you more money to bring in an expert to unpick it and fix it. So you can save yourself heartache, hassle, and the hearts of all of your experts that are slowly getting degraded by the stress we have of trying to unpick it after you've made a bad decision and having to tell you that you've wasted your money on that because you actually need something different. Yeah. So yeah.
And I'm sure people have spent time in organisations where they're constantly going, oh, we've got a new thing, you've all got to learn it, and you're all like, no, we're not using the last thing. Yeah, very frustrating. Sorry, Rachel, I spoke over you.
When I worked for Auto Trader, we had about 350 sales staff who all needed to use the sales front end of Salesforce. Obviously, biggest CRM in the world, and we needed them to use it. Getting them to actually use it and embed it properly took us probably about 2 years to get 350 staff using a CRM. And they didn't truly start to really get it until we wrote it into the minimum standards of performance. So my mantra as their sales director was, if it isn't in Salesforce, it didn't happen. Simple as that. And we were then such big users of Salesforce that a member of the Salesforce team actually came and worked in our business and helped it to really embed across the whole organization. But it takes a long time. If you've got a lot of staff, it can take a long time to embed that whole end-to-end process. Luckily, if you've only got a small business and a few salespeople, it can be a lot quicker than that.
Well, I can imagine how hard that is, because just saying to my husband, if it's not in the diary, it doesn't happen. If it's not in the calendar, and that's just one person. So my God, I can imagine a whole sales team who wants to do it their way. Yeah. Sorry, he's not here to answer back today. Okay, so we kind of covered a lot of the questions that I had to talk about with you guys, because we kind of moved in there. I wanted to leave, we've got a few minutes and then everybody technically leaves at 1:30, but we can go on for longer. If we've got people still interested, we can go on till 1:45. So I just wanted to make that clear that obviously if you have to leave, please leave, but we'll go on for another few minutes. I wanted to just sort of leave maybe the last few minutes and say, what's the best thing you've learned for implementing new stuff into a business? What's the kind of we sort of said about what's the key thing you should know as the person who's going to be doing it? What are the questions you should ask? But what would the best thing you've learned from all of this? And ask you all for your words of wisdom. So I will be mean and I will start with I'll start with you, James, because you had the longest. So I'll start with you while everyone else thinks of their answer.
Okay, so I think I just sort of rehashed what's been said a little bit before. It's sort of starting with the end in mind. What is the outcome you want to achieve with all of this? So if you only ever do anything in business or in life really, if you know what your outcome is that you want to get to, and then you then work back and sort of do all that and sort of figure out how that sort of makes sense. A lot of the time people don't really understand what they're trying to achieve. They just go, oh, this, loads of other people are using it, I should do this. But actually, I think as everyone else has already sort of reiterated, you have to know exactly what the outcome you want from it. Otherwise, you may as well not bother. And I do sit in front of, quite a few sort of business owners and whatever, and they have no idea what their sales process is. And all their staff internally have a different sales process in their mind. And you go, well, like, software just speeds up what you're doing. So if you've got chaos, it's just going to be quicker chaos. So don't do that. And so always start with the end in mind.
Well, that's pretty true. Yes.
I think don't underestimate the power of questions. And that means getting sales teams involved with any of the things that you're going to implement. If you sit down and ask some very, very specific questions of your sales team and, the people that you're working around with, and get them involved in the process and get them excited about how it can impact what they're doing, it'll be so much easier to get them to adopt stuff. It'll also be so much happier for everybody, and you'll be able to choose the right things. So don't underestimate the power of sitting down and just asking, how would you like the process to improve? What do you think would be better? Because we tend to always sit from the outside and go, you should do this. But actually, if you just ask people, they have some really great ideas themselves that could really improve the process. So don't underestimate actually asking your own experts within your team how they would like to see things improve.
It's a very good point, because that word should, which we all use a lot, I should be doing this, we should be doing this, and it's actually, what would you like to be doing? What will make things work for you is a far more effective question. Joe, where are you on this? Maybe probably where everybody else is. But
well, actually, I was going to say something very, very similar to Kenda, and I think that's a fantastic point, in that you need to speak to the stakeholders that are involved. Whether they're involved for an hour a week or they're involved using it all the time, you need to kind of evaluate the needs. And I think that it's just so important to understand what you want to get out from something like a CRM. And the idea of just completely getting everything out of it is often not possible. So you might have to kind of plug in smaller technologies based on needs of different areas within the business. So it's quite difficult to find one platform that does it all, is one thing that I would say.
That's very true. But although, to be fair though, what people, if they have so many, they don't realize that some of it is duplicated, that they actually already had a system that did that. And I keep hearing about that. People have got so much stuff that almost does the same thing just because one little bit was different.
Completely.
That is really interesting. So Rachael, on this, because you're advising in lots of different companies on their sales process, you must hear about crazy things that they're doing. What would your advice be? What have you learned from all this?
I think the key thing is buy-in and benefits. And I think James mentioned it really early on, in that everybody in a business is in sales. And so when a leader is trying to sell in the idea that we want to introduce a new technology, they're selling that to their team. And so you've got to sell the buy-in. Why should they buy into it? And how is it going to benefit them? In what way is it going to make their life easier? And to sort of tie into that and follow on from what Kenda was saying about getting everybody's opinion, the one group of people which are so often forgotten when it comes to bringing in new systems and new ideas is the customer. Bring in the bloody customer. I think it's a really great idea to actually get in a few of your great customers, your ambassadors, with your key salespeople and say, we want to take things to the next level to improve our service, to allow us to be bigger and better and faster and easier and all those things, and actually get the customer to give some feedback. Because when, as a salesperson, when your customer speaks, you should be all ears. That's all salespeople are very loyal to their customers. They want to do the right thing by them. So if the customer speaks, we should all just be saying, what do you want? How high should I jump? Set the hoop on fire, I'll jump through it, because customer is king after all. That's what we're all here for.
So he's like, you love us. How can we make you love us even more?
Yeah.
And get them. Yeah, that's it's for some people that might feel like quite a brave thing to do, because you're laying it out on the line that you're not good enough in some ways. But yeah, no, that's really interesting. Well, look, it's been fascinating, guys. And Tudor's been saying that he's going to do another webinar on automation. and also probably more on the use of video. And these are the sort of hot topics that we all seem to get so excited about at these webinars. Thank you so much to everybody. So to Rachel, Joe, James and Kenda, and it's been fascinating as ever. Thanks, Judah, for organising it.
Thank you very much, Claire, for moderating that so well. That was a really juicy discussion point there, and as usual, we could just go on forever on these topics because there's so many tangents that we can go off on. But really, really good. I've got a huge to-do list now of me next week's. But that was brilliant. It was a really good chat. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Rach, James, Joe, Kenda, and of course again to Claire for moderating that so well. Any questions? Give me a shout. We'll be sending a video to all the attendees. If you panelists want us to send anything to the guys as well, feel free to just send it to me or Charlie. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.